Hey, it's the Nerdy Sports Fan, and this is week 3 of the Nerdy Sports Fan Weekly. So, football changes a lot when your quarterback goes down. I mean, we had an injury to Wentz. We're not sure if he's really going to be that injury-prone quarterback for his entire career. It's starting to look that way, isn't it? There's obviously hopes that he's still going to start. And not really a lot of talk that he's out or anything of that nature, but he keeps getting dinged up. Foles has been out since week 1, and that's submarining the season for Jacksonville. I mean, they have players taking swings at coaches and demanding trades already. And then Big Ben, he goes down with a shoulder. Pittsburgh's season is lost because all of their other really talented players with any sort of leadership capability left the locker room in the past few years. Antonio Brown's in New England. Le'Veon Bell is with the Jets. So who's going to step up and carry that team? Oh yeah, nobody. And then you have the Saints. The Saints, I mean, Drew Brees, throwing hand, can't grip a ball, surgery, 6 to 8 weeks out. Their team's really, really well built, though, so they're probably still going to get a couple of wins in that 6 to 8 week period, and that'll be just enough for when Drew comes back for him to carry that team to the playoffs in a weak division. So, this is a lot. There's a lot of change. So, fantasy football-wise, these other teams that didn't really get much action, you really got to look at them to see, hey, the number one receiver on a bad team, specifically, in my mind, you got to go after players like Terry McLaurin from Washington. He's a breakout guy. Everybody picked up John Ross already, but, I mean, if for whatever reason he's still available, get him. Because these guys are playing for bad teams, but they're putting up points. Goodwin from Tampa, pick him up. Okay? These guys are the kind of people you focus on when you see your top-tier guys start to falter. Michael Gallup, second wide receiver out of Dallas, still available in a lot of leagues for whatever stupid frickin' reason. Look at Buffalo. John Brown, Cole Beasley, they're both getting plenty of targets, plenty of yards every game. So, yes, your Michael Thomases of the world, your Juju Smith-Schusters of the world, they're all getting downgraded. You got to find a way to build up. And really, right now, you got to look to other teams for that. Because when your quarterback goes down, everybody on that offense goes down. So you can't replace internally from the same team because, you're not substituting for a direct player. Okay, it's not like your starting running back went out, you got to replace him with his backup if he was in a great offense. Your starting receiver, your starting running back wasn't the one that was hurt. The reason he gets good production is what was hurt. So Alvin Kamara, he's a running back 2 to 3 now. So, how are you going to replace that production? Probably picking up Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde is going to push Johnson out the door as the number 1 option, just like he did when they played for the Browns together. They were on the same backfield in Cleveland last year, and Hyde was the starter over Johnson. Did anybody not see this coming when they were in the same backfield again? Hyde's just a better player. So he's going to get the play there in Houston. So put him in now that Kamara's not as good of an option. You got to be creative, guys. So lots of injuries, lots of change to fantasy lineups. If you're not aware of the depth out there in the league, you're going to be left behind. If you only know the big names, you're going to have problems. So you really have to scour through other teams. I really highly suggest looking at San Francisco's backfield right now. Since Tevin Coleman went out, if that's going to be a longer-term situation, Breida and Mostert are in a 1-to-1 sort of split right now, and both did very well last week. I expect that to continue because they're going against Pittsburgh, who doesn't have their quarterback, so their defense is going to be on the field all game long. Looking at those other teams that didn't necessarily have an eye on them for preeminent talent for their starters, those are the teams now that you got to be desperate to pick through and get your points back on the board, since your wide receivers and running backs on these teams that lost their QB are all now devalued. The only running back out there that had an injured quarterback that's still worth starting at the level he was worth starting is Fournette, because he's never had a quarterback. Fournette was a number one running back with Blake Bortles throwing the ball. So, yeah, with Uncle Rico throwing the ball behind him, he's still going to be a number one running back threat because that's just who he is. That's how the Jacksonville Jaguars are built. But that's not how the Saints and Pittsburgh are built. They need their quarterback in order for those running backs to produce the kind of points they were. They're not going to be as good of a receiving threat. They're not going to be as good of a running threat because everybody's keying in on them now. So, yeah, you're going to have to replace that production. You're going to have to get creative with it. Obviously, I rattled off a number of names that you should be targeting. But hit me up in the comments section. Message me. I'll help you adjust your fantasy lineups as much as I can. If you can let me know the best players available that you're thinking of and who else you have on your bench, I'll help you through it, guys. As far as the news in general, I still don't understand how Antonio Brown is allowed to start. I don't. He's got a very credible sexual assault allegation against him. And this is just looking sad at this point, okay? I don't get why the NFL doesn't seem to care about anything that happens off the field as long as the player's talented. And it seems to be skewed towards the offense, too. Because defensive players, they'll get suspended. They'll get ostracized by the media. And they'll get, time off very, very easily. Whereas, when you get into the offense, Antonio Brown's got nothing against him right now. Nothing. How is the league not responding to this in any way whatsoever? I don't get it. Okay? I think Antonio Brown should be riding the pine. I think even if he's not suspended by the league, New England should step up and say, hey, we're going to keep you on the bench until things, figure themselves out. But they're not going to. They're just in it to win. And that is a big problem. Okay, we're teaching our kids that winning matters more than anything ethical off the field. We're teaching our kids that putting up points matters more than whether or not you're sexually assaulting your trainer. It's disgusting. So, I hated the Patriots before by virtue of being a Bills fan. The past few seasons of them having exactly zero ethics have made me utterly despise every single shred of this franchise. From the ownership all the way down, they have no class whatsoever. And they're good. They're really good. Now, they're making people a lot of money with bets. They're making fantasy teams do really well all over the place. But they're doing it in exactly the worst way possible. They're setting a horrible example for people across the country, and I think it's crap. So that's my soapbox there. Lots of quarterback injuries is going to make the league very interesting. It's only week 3, so things are still shaking out, but Andrew Luck, Nick Foles, Ben Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, and, soon to be Deshaun Watson, I'm pretty sure, based off of how many sacks he's taking. There's going to be a lot of quarterback injuries that dictate what this season becomes. And you're seeing that the young, good quarterback is a priority. I mean, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, these guys are not looked at as injury-prone, and they're talented players running an offense and making their teams better. So the young quarterbacks are starting to take over. The league has to take notice. The league has to take note of this, I would expect Pittsburgh to be in the market for one of the first-round quarterbacks this offseason because I expect Roethlisberger to retire after this. He's been flirting with retirement for 2 seasons now, and now he's got a season-ending injury. Do you think at his age, with the fact that he's already won himself a ring, that he wants to go through more injury rehab just to go to a fractured locker room again? I think he's hanging up the cleats. So there's going to be a huge shift in the league based off of quarterback talent going down with injury, retiring, and it's going to be very interesting to see how teams deal with it. We saw with Andrew Luck going down that, you have teams like Houston, like Jacksonville and Tennessee, they all think they have a better shot now. Tennessee and Houston are dealing with it better. Jacksonville is crumbling because they had their own quarterback injury. All right? If Foles was still in the lineup, I guarantee you Ramsey's not taking a swing at his coach because they're probably 2-0. They were doing really well week 1 before Foles went down. And last week, they only lost by like a point against a good Houston team. If they had Foles, that's a difference in that game. So, I don't know. Foles still has a chance of coming back this season. That might change things in Jacksonville. If they can somehow appease Jalen Ramsey to make it so he does not get traded and stays with that team, they still have a chance because that division has been up for grabs ever since Andrew Luck retired. So, that's a very interesting division to me. The NFC South has become much more interesting because with Drew Brees' injury, Atlanta's been helter-skelter. Cam Newton's been dealing with his own injury recovery. Tampa Bay, they seem tougher than they were in years past. I mean, who's going to win that division now? Really? If anybody can guarantee they know who's going to win that division, they're lying to you. My bet's Atlanta at this point, but how inconsistent have they been over the past decade? Matt Ryan brought them to a Super Bowl, had a 28-3 lead, and still lost. They are so streaky, it's insane. In the same game, they can be epic and terrible in the same game. So week to week, you don't know who they are. What's going on with Carolina? Can Cam Newton throw the ball 10 yards accurately? No. So there's a lot of questions. And I don't think in either of those divisions, the NFC South or the AFC South, anybody really has the answers. So other divisions are really where the strength is going to come from both conferences. I would expect the NFC North, specifically the Packers and Vikings, to take advantage of the fact that the NFC South is weak. I would expect the AFC East, now, with the Bills and the Patriots, that's what's going to matter because the AFC South is going to be kind of crap. So, with the AFC South weakening with quarterback issues, that cements for me fringe teams that could have been playoff contention. Now they're almost a lock. Especially Buffalo starting 2-0 with a weak AFC South. Who's going to compete for a wild card spot with them? Because I think they have it on lock now. Obviously, New England's going to win the division, but I think Buffalo's in on the playoffs because wild card wise, the AFC South is decimated, and the AFC West, the Raiders, they're not going to pick it up. The Broncos aren't going to pick it up. So you have the Chiefs and the Chargers in the AFC West. AFC North, you definitely have the Ravens going in. Pittsburgh's hurt. The Browns are still figuring themselves out. So yeah, fringe playoff teams are now lock playoff teams because of these injury structures. So everybody's going to have to change their betting habits, but also their fantasy football habits. These running quarterbacks that have dynamic-looking offenses are definitely going to go value up, and the wide receiver and running backs for those offenses, like Baltimore, are going to be valued up because of all of these injuries to other quarterbacks taking other wide receivers and running backs down. So everybody on Baltimore needs to get another look. Willie Snead is available in all leagues, and he's going to turn into a wide receiver 3 almost every week as long as this offense continues. Try to trade for Andrews. That guy's going to end up being the best tight end in the league, and you can still get him for players that have bigger names because, well, people are dumb. So if you can dangle out there an Alvin Kamara, who's now devalued because of an 8-week absence from Drew Brees, you can pick up lesser name players that have better scoring potential. So Alvin Kamara, I guarantee somebody's going to be dumb enough to trade you 2 players, including a top name wide receiver like a Hopkins or a Julio Jones, and a lesser name but very, very usable tight end like an Andrews or a Hawkinson. Kamara, trade him now because you're going to get the best value out of him now. Seriously. Same with anybody you have on Pittsburgh, Juju Smith-Schuster or James Conner. Trade those guys now while their value is as high as it's going to be so you can get lesser name talent that is going to outscore them based off of their quarterback injuries. That's what I got for week 3 here, guys. Tune in next week for the Nerdy Sports Fan Weekly to see what's going on generally in the league. Get your sit, start, and your trade advice. Hit up the rest of the videos so you can get more specific breakdowns for each individual game and who I think is going to win. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and we'll see you next week.